Welcome to The Essence, where we have casual conversations with impact leaders, quick pulse checks with no BS. Today, we are speaking with Neil Yeoh, founder and CEO of OnePointFive.
Hi, Neil. How are you doing?
Hey, not too bad.
Thank you so much for your time. Hey, if you got a couple of minutes, I wanted to pick your brains.
Sure, sounds good.
Let's first start with, can you tell us in one sentence what OnePointFive does?
Yeah, so OnePointFive, I'm the CEO and founder of OnePointFive, and OnePointFive is trying to democratize access to climate experts to solve problems and deploy solutions to keep warming below 1.5 in the business sector.
Perfect. So climate science tells us that we have to halve our emissions by 2030. Can you give us 3 reasons why anyone should care about climate change?
Yeah, I definitely can. I mean, one, I would say that it matters because of our health and our future, especially if you're going to have kids in the future. And by 2030, 2050, 2070, we're going to see sea level rise, impacts on heat. 19% of the world will be inhabitable if we're on a 3 to 4 degree temperature warming by 2070. So just for the safety of our future generations, that's one. The second is that our future of our jobs is at risk. 83% of companies notice that climate has a physical and financial risk. And that's also in terms of all industries. So if we don't start to translate our business to meet these needs, we're not going to have particularly jobs in the future. And the third thing is because, there's one picture that Al Gore uses on the blue marble of the earth. At the end of the day, regardless of whatever political, stance we have, whatever country we live in, whatever culture we're brought up in, we live in one earth. And that one earth is where we need to be custodians of it. Otherwise, there won't be anything left.
I love it. So
100%.
Let's move on to climate tech. So we know disruptive technology will be key to mitigating climate risk. And you work with a lot of entrepreneurs solving climate issues. What's the most exciting innovation you've come across lately?
Yeah, the most exciting innovations that I'm coming across is not necessarily the carbon removal spaces, but the decarbonization solution. So I'm coming across very, very interesting startups, especially with concrete and steel, which we don't have enough of, but using almost nanotechnology or new material science that we have to reduce the carbon embedded in every day in terms of infrastructure. The other side of it that's really fascinating is in the renewable energy spaces and the new types of battery technologies that we're having, green hydrogen becoming like a very new norm, and the push towards, I guess, the hardware climate mitigation technologies that we need in order to draw down carbon, knowing that our trajectory right now with nature-based solutions may not have the capacity to meet the 1.5 goal. Those are a couple, yeah.
Sounds like there's a lot of areas that we should be looking into. Moving on to climate anxiety, this term is something that we've picked on quite a bit. So according to the American Psychological Association, this is a chronic fear of environmental doom, and it's getting more real, affecting people. What's your take on it?
Yeah, that's a really hard thing. It's a human psychology, right? At the end of the day, climate change can be very doom and gloom, but we almost need to flip our mindset also to the climate positivity or the climate optimism of what opportunities lie ahead in the fact of if we invest our time and energy in the climate space or invest in it. It's the greatest problem and challenge in our life. So either you can have a fixed mindset and be sad about the fact that the world will be kind of falling through, or you can be on the growth mindset side and thinking, well, how do I think about the solutions and be part of the change? And I know that it's a very tough thing, but on the one hand, we need to understand the realism in the doom and gloom space, but not let us stop us from motivated to actually make a difference.
Thank you for that reminder. It's kind of glass half full, glass half empty type of mentality.
Exactly.
So the last one is around talent. We're seeing a lot of interest from financial professionals who are keen to get up to speed on climate finance. What's your advice to them? And also tell us more about the Accelerator internship program, which you're part of.
Yeah, of course. Definitely seeing a lot of interest. My advice to the people who are financial professionals, first of all, your skill sets are already strong enough that you can contribute a lot to the climate space. But the number one thing we heard literally just from investors just on my previous call is the mission alignment to climate. So if you can't answer the question of why climate change matters to you and it actually comes from a deep rooted reason why, I really will tell you that, especially in the climate finance space, is that you may not get those jobs. And the reason why is because climate is so intertwined. It's not just about return on investment, but it's also return on the climate impacts that we can achieve. And that requires someone to be able to balance both profits and impacts, both not only in the measurement of the investment dollars to climate impacts, but also in their own reason why they want to be in that field. So that's what I'd particularly say. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I love it. And this is really something that we emphasize as well, is think about the why, the big why when it comes to climate finance, impact, and ESG, and people can tell whether you have deep conviction. Okay, finally, we have a round of rapid fire questions. You can just say overrated or underrated without explaining anything. Blockchain, overrated or underrated?
Oof. I would say underrated for the energy sector.
Okay. ESG, overrated or underrated?
Overrated, for sure.
Impact, overrated or underrated?
Overrated as well, in terms of what you mean by that.
Finally, what's a book that you've been reading or a movie that you would recommend on this topic?
Yeah, I guess 14 Peaks was a wonderful movie, more so for the people who are doom and gloom and anxiety about climate change. It doesn't touch specifically on climate, but it's that stubborn optimism that we need to have to do the impossible, which is to solve for climate and call it possible. And a book-wise that I would recommend, well, actually Project Drawdown is coming out with a new book, but if you haven't read the original, I'd say yes to that, but they're coming out with a new edition of their research in April. So Fantastic. You should tune in for that.
Fantastic. So thank you so much, Neil, for having spending time with us on The Essence. We are so lucky to have you, and all the best for 2022.
No problem. Thank you, Katie.